You are listening to the Tiny Vet Podcast with me, Dr. Nicole Sue, exotics veterinarian for 7 years, and my fiance Jez Watts.
Hello.
That's his qualification. That's all he is.
Yes.
Yeah. He has a background as a neuroscientist and in biotech, and he is currently a comedian making really, really good use of the tax dollars of our great nation.
Yes, thank you all
Australia.
I'm divorcing you. We're not even married
We're not
yet.
even married yet.
But you're getting a preliminary divorce for just using that accent.
I can't. I've never been able to like good Australian.
No, you
accent.
did it, and it's bad.
Okay, cool. Anyway, so we on this podcast we are discussing hot topics in vet med, and today we are gonna kind of tangenty off a little bit, and we're gonna talk about over the counter versus prescription drugs.
Okay.
And one thing that I find a lot of people, they think there is an over the counter version of prescription medication, which is really weird. So what I find people asking for is they'll go, oh, I found this eye drop at the pet store.
Mm-hmm.
Is this acceptable substitute for the more expensive immunosuppressant eye drop that the vet prescribed me?
Well, of
I'm like,
course, everything is a conspiracy. You know that.
I was like, no, your pet's eyeballs will shrivel up and fall off. And we don't want that to happen.
Mhm.
So please do not. But that brings me to the point where like prescription drugs are a prescription for a reason. And it's because
Why?
it's because improper use can severely harm whoever it's used on. So, for example, like immunosuppressant eye drop. So, I'm just thinking of this because it was one of the more ridiculous requests that I had, where they're like, "Is this homeopathic treatment equivalent to the highly researched drug that's in the more expensive eye drop?"
I just want to say, anyone who's a homeopath out there, I hope you drown. Sorry, go on. There's a little bit of oxygen in water, so you'll be fine.
Yeah, you'll be totally fine.
Yeah.
And the reason is, so it's an immunosuppressive drug that's in these eye drops. And let's say it was over the counter and you could buy for $20 a bottle without a vet prescription. Like, you could cause blindness. If used like orally, you could cause, bone marrow suppression, which means that you don't make your red blood cells and your
You're
white
saying
blood
if this
cells.
was medicine and not just water.
I'm
I'm saying.
yes.
Yeah.
So there's a really good reason why these ones can't just be bought over the counter, because you really need to know what you're doing when you decide to use these drugs, and you also need to be able to go back for revisits. A lot of times when I use these more dicey medications in patients, I'll go, hey, I want to see you back actually in like 2 days or in 5 days, because I'm going to really want to monitor the situation. And a lot of times monitoring is not something where you're like, yep, he's still got an eye. It's something where we might take intraocular pressure. It's something where, we'll do little tests that can be done in the clinic.
Can I ask you something
to
about the
make
price?
sure. Yeah.
So, does the vet clinic, do you guys mark up medication?
Yes, we do. So what happens with medications that are sold through a vet clinic is that there'll be a dispensing fee.
Okay.
And that is on top of the medication, which we normally do mark up from the supplier as well.
How much?
It ranges from 50 to 100%.
Okay. That sounds like a lot.
It does sound like a lot. However, it's probably really similar to what human pharmacies do as well. Yeah, and a big part of it I actually learned when I got my own little like vet wholesaler account.
Mm-hmm.
And I was actually really surprised at how expensive things were from the vet wholesaler.
Right.
And because a lot of vet clinics are not well run in terms of the business sense, like vets just don't make good business people, so we don't make any money. But I was actually seeing discrepancies in stuff that we had that we were stocking, because we just hadn't updated the prices for ages, and there were this 100% medications that we're losing money on.
Yeah, right.
As well, yeah. Because price of everything goes up after a while, but we don't have a staff member that sits down and reviews the catalog from the wholesaler and then reviews our billing as well.
Right.
So there's actually probably a lot of medications that we do lose money on.
Crazy.
But a lot of the price also covers, dispensing bottles. We've got to order in our own bottles to dispense smaller amounts into. So that costs money. We've got to print the labels because that's a legal requirement. That costs money. Our time costs money. So it might take one vet and one nurse to make up a medication that's ready to dispense.
Mm-hmm.
If that takes 10 minutes, that costs money as well. And,
Right.
if you add on all these little things up, you're actually going to start realizing that, well, we're actually not making that much of a profit
Right.
off these medications. A certain part of the revenue definitely does come from dispensing medication.
Mm-hmm.
However, that's also because we don't make much revenue from other sides of the practice as well. Like veterinary practices are not a good way to make money. We're just not good at that.
Neither is being a comedian.
Neither is
Yeah.
being a comedian. Yeah, we're very, very poor people.
Luckily, there's the only death I have to worry about is my own on stage.
Yes. Our shitty apartment is currently overrun
You
by
don't have to tell everyone it's shitty.
what we think are millions of mice.
I mean, I think this is like 100 mice.
I mean, there's so many mice. There are so many mice. But what I want everyone to take away from this is there's a reason why prescription medication is a prescription, and it's not a money-making thing. It's not a conspiracy. And a big part of it has to do with, hey, we care about the welfare of your animal, and we know all the things that can happen with misuse of it, and we want to make sure that that doesn't happen. Hell, this thing that happened even with proper use of medication, adverse effects. That's one of the things that we weigh up whenever we decide to prescribe a medication. So there are no homeopathic equivalents for prescription medications. Please stop asking me that. They are in fact more expensive because they're basically water. And also, please.
I know you're wrapping up, but I just want to say I think it's very interesting that most like homeopathic or like alternative.
It's such a waste of money.
But most alternative medicine or homeopathic medicine that you can buy over the counter is produced by the same companies that make antibiotics, that make prescription medication, that make real medicine, because they have an infrastructure to produce things and push it out, and they already have a supply agreement with with whatever pharmacies, and it's literally the same companies, but one of these things has a market and does health, and one of these things has a market, and they're like, oh, we don't care, we'll make the money.
We just want to make the money.
Plus, people will buy way more homeopathic stuff because they're gonna stay sick.
Yeah, it's not gonna work. The Tiny Vet Podcast is brought to you by Upilio. Sources for our topics can be found at upilio.io. Outro music by Matt Charleston.